Jeff.
Jeff, okay. Everyone ready?
I think we are.
Great, okay, so good afternoon and thank you all for being here. I'm Supervisor George Homan. Let me just recognize some of the elected officials that are here, several of which will be speaking. So we have, of course, United States Congressman Michael Waller and County Executive Ed Day. You'll be hearing from both of them momentarily. We have Clarkstown Councilman Michael Graziano. We have Legislator Will Kennelly, Legislator Ray Sheridan. We have Clarkstown Police Chief Jeff Wanamaker. We also have our Town Attorney Kevin Conway. We have folks from our Code Enforcement Department, Ray Francis. We have our fire inspectors here as well. And I want to thank them all for their ongoing efforts in helping us address illegal housing. So why are we here today? We're here today to provide an update on what our town is doing against the battle against unsafe housing that continues to manifest throughout the county and frankly throughout the country. It's particularly troubling what we're going to be announcing today, but I'm grateful that we've got a good team that's working on this. It's been an ongoing issue, as many of you know, that since the migrant crisis began last October, we had a press announcement on some action that we took against many properties. I'm pleased to say that a number of those properties have been cleaned up and brought into compliance. And as I've stated since the beginning of this crisis, the town of Clarkstown will pursue vigorously every legal action at our disposal to stop illegal housing and bring these properties into compliance. My administration, I'm proud to say, will also pursue every legal action at its disposal to go after the property owners who create these dangerous and illegal conditions. It's especially egregious when we are able to identify serial offenders, those who have clearly built a business model based on putting vulnerable lives in extreme danger. Two such individuals are finding out the hard way today that this activity will not be tolerated within the town of Clarkstown. After extensive investigations, the town has commenced separate legal actions in state Supreme Court against Simca Schwartz and Wilson Bermeo for owning and operating multiple properties in violation of town code and housing migrants. Mr. Schwartz is responsible for 10 homes being rented out, several of which failed inspections and were issued violations. Mr. Schwartz also was largely non-responsive and failed to attend justice court appearances. Of the 10 properties Mr. Schwartz owned, 6 were actually filed with our town's rental registry, many of them late. Several others were not filed with the rental registry. 3 of the properties that were filed on the rental registry failed their first inspection, resulting in significant violations. 3 other registered properties were only filed with the registry very recently after we took some of our pending actions from the inspections. Mr. Schwartz is also facing violations for operating 4 rental properties without registering them as well. Among his violations, Mr. Schwartz is the owner of 4 Fulton Street, and I know we're going to be showing some of these up on the screen, and 83 Hall Avenue, both in New City, which were found to have been illegally converted into multifamily residences. 83 Hall Avenue had safety violations, including multiple interior doors with locks, electrical violations, things such as extension cords, holes being cut into walls, extension cords being placed through, family of 5 living in 1 bedroom, and many, many fire hazards. The town seeking a court order to inspect all of Mr. Schwartz's properties and to vacate the ones being illegally and unsafely inhabited, and to bring them back into full compliance as single-family homes. This is what the neighbors expect. This is what people deserve. We cannot have people profiteering off of migrants and recent arrivals to this country. This is wholly unacceptable. And unfortunately, Mr. Schwartz is operating these 10 homes in total disregard of the law. Mr. Wilson Bermeo has been identified as the owner of 7 homes in the town of Clarkstown, 6 of which he operates as rentals, and 1 of which he claims to be his own primary residence. His properties span from New City to Nanuet to West Nyack. Mr. Bermeo registered 4 of the rental properties, 3 of which failed their first inspections, and 1 pending its 2024 inspection. That same property at 459 Phillips Hill Road in the city was issued a violation in 2023 and has been the subject of an extensive investigation where we executed a search warrant on June 3rd. Mr. Bermeo, through Miriam's Berta LLC, is the owner of 180 Berta Lane in New City. The property was filed for the rental registry of the town in March of this year. It failed its inspection less than 2 months later, which triggered the issuance of a search warrant 2 days later. A search warrant was also issued for Mr. Bermeo's property at 401 Phillips Hill Road in New City last month. 24 people were living in that residence. 3 families were occupying the upstairs floor. Each of Mr. Bermeo's properties that have been issued violations housed over 20 people, every single one. And just as an aside, as we execute search warrants, our staff are trained to ask a number of questions. And Clarkstown Police will assist us in making sure that our staff have the ability to be able to go in and do their inspections. And as we question folks in these residences, we always learn, just about in every case, that these are people that are recent arrivals to the country. Many times folks are coming to the United States. They tell our inspectors that they're coming to the country have been in the country just a few weeks to a few months, that they've either come from places like Indiana, Texas, into Queens, New York City, and up into Rockland County, into Clarkstown. As I said, search warrants were issued on a number of his properties, and every single one of them had over 20 individuals. In one instance, I think there were 30 people living in one of his homes. In a number of the properties, individuals admitted to being recent arrivals in the country. As I said, several had traveled from Central and South America to New York City and then to Clarkstown. This will not be tolerated in Clarkstown. We'll be seeking numerous avenues of redress, including but not limited to monetary damages. All information we discover will be turned over for potential criminal prosecution, including tax violations. We have also previously announced an expansion of our code enforcement department, making Clarkstown the largest local code enforcement agency in Rockland County. The safety and security of our residents and first responders is of paramount importance to me and to my administration. And we continue to urge local residents to call, to step in, or to send us tips. These actions have been taken thanks to many of the tips that we receive from the public. And I can tell you, we'll be announcing other actions as well going forward. As I said before, since this migrant crisis has taken place, since the open borders happened, every town is a border town. Every town is a border town. Finally, we'll be referring all these properties to the County Health Department under the Codes Initiative, and I'm very grateful for the partnership we have with our County Executive Ed Day and his team who are assisting us. Health code violations are a further avenue to pursue that will ensure compliance and hopefully will serve as a deterrent to these practices. I also want to thank Congressman Mike Waller for his support and work to address and his work to address this migrant crisis. I want to thank our town attorney Kevin Conway, our code enforcement officers Ray Francis, Megan Fay, and Darrell Draper, our building inspector Larry Kay, our fire inspector Steve Ungerleider, Harold Strout, and all the folks from our fire inspectors department. Again, as I conclude with my remarks, and we'll be available to take questions as well, we're going to seek every avenue possible to punish these violators and return these houses to the single-family status that they deserve. This is what our residents expect. The safety and health and welfare of the local residents and the first responders who have to go to these houses is of the utmost importance to me and my administration. Let me conclude with this. I expect that we'll have further announcements in the coming weeks and months. Just 2 days ago, I received a phone call from the police department who had been at a local residence, and there had been a medical emergency call, and there were over 30 people living in that home, over 30. This is the type of thing that's taking place, not just in Clarkstown, but it's taking place across the region. And it's why every town is frankly a border town. These are new arrivals, migrants that are coming into our country that are being victimized. People are being paid cash. The rental rolls in some of these houses is $5,000, $7,000 to $10,000 a month. We're going to make these owners pay. They're going to pay. They're going to pay the most significant fines. They're going to have to reconvert their homes. It's going to be an expensive endeavor. And we're going to make sure that what happens here with these owners is known far and wide, because it's not going to be tolerated. We're not going to allow people's lives to be at risk. So with that, I'm going to ask Congressman Mike Waller to say a few words, and then he'll be followed by County Executive Ed Day.
Thank you, Supervisor Homan. And thank you to the town of Clarkstown for their continued hard work on the issue of code enforcement and holding scrupulous landlords responsible. This will not be tolerated, period. And it should not be tolerated by any resident or neighbor, and certainly not from our government. These folks have a responsibility to follow the law, to follow the town codes, and to ensure the safety and well-being, not only of those that they are renting to, but to our first responders and to our fire service members, to ensure their safety and well-being. We have a lot of layers here. Number one, obviously, you have landlords that are violating the law, that are illegally converting homes, that are illegally renting and taking what should be single-family residential homes and converting them illegally into multifamily dwellings, putting the safety and lives of not just those renters, but our first responders at risk. Secondarily, this highlights a fundamental problem. The policies of the Biden administration and of the Hochul and Adams administration are a disaster. When you allow 10 million people to cross our southern border, most of them illegally, over the last 3+ years, this is the result. Nationwide, we are 6 million housing units underbuilt. So, of course, when you have a sanctuary state like New York, when you have a sanctuary city like New York City, where you are using hotels, where you are using homeless shelters to house people, and you don't have enough space and location, and then people are being dispersed across the Hudson Valley and across New York State and across the country, this is what happens. You have unscrupulous people who are going to take advantage of the situation, who are going to try to make a buck off the misfortunes of others. It is wrong. And it's why I have called repeatedly for the Adams and Hochul administrations to end their disastrous sanctuary state and city policies, stop making this a breeding ground for folks to come, and causing havoc all across our communities. This is costing New York State billions of dollars. In the state budget, Kathy Hochul put aside $2.4 billion to support this entire scheme. It is a joke, and it needs to stop. President Biden last week, after 41 months, finally took executive action. He created this mess by reversing many of the executive orders of the prior administration, and then is shocked somehow that our cities and states like New York are crumbling under the weight of it. This is a crisis of their own making. It is a policy decision to allow catch and release. It is a policy decision to process people who cross our southern border illegally and then ship them up to New York. And I would remind everybody focuses on Texas and Florida, that the governors of those states are sending folks to New York. 80% of the people coming to New York are being shipped by the federal government, not by Texas or Florida. 80% are being sent here by the federal government. Why? Because New York rolled out the red carpet and said, we're a sanctuary city, we welcome you. Yes, we are a nation of immigrants. Yes, we welcome immigrants to this country. Yes, we want them to participate in our society, in our communities, in our economy. But we want them to do so legally and through a process. Our communities cannot stand this. So now, Clarkstown, Rockland County, have to continue to deal with this crisis, the overflow, the spill-out effect from New York City. And so when you have unscrupulous landlords who are willing to make a buck off migrants, and so now you have houses housing 20 to 30 migrants, that's insane. And it's unsafe. And it's illegal. And it absolutely must be cracked down on, and these landlords need to be held accountable. I don't care who they are, what their background is, it's irrelevant. If you are taking advantage of this situation to make a buck, we're going to make you pay. And so I thank Supervisor Homan for his hard work, for his leadership, for his willingness to do what is right, and for making sure that the safety and well-being of our residents here in the town of Clarkstown and here in Rockland County comes above all other considerations.
County Executive Ed.
Thank you, George. First of all, the most important thing I want to just convey is I want to express my gratitude, my undying gratitude to Supervisor Holman and his entire team for what they're doing. What they're doing is work that is moving us forward to saving this county. It is out of control. There's no nice way of putting this, but the one thing I will say is a year and a half ago, I believe it was March, Congressman, Michael and myself, we came up with a press conference and we spoke of the unintended consequences of Rockland County becoming part of the southern border. We spoke about the school system, 1,000 more children who they're not prepared for. We spoke about the food pantries running out of food by 11:30 in the morning. Children unaccompanied coming here who had no place to go and there was nothing that was here for them whatsoever, and we were trying to foster them. 35% increase in foster children. These are the true dynamics that are behind a failed policy from the federal government. 41 months of allowing 10 million people into this country, and again, I don't want to hear we're anti-immigrant. During a press conference, we had people there who were serving the immigrant community. So they knew full well that the more this happened, the less we'd be able to help the people who are here who are looking for the funding from the same place. But at the end of the day, we talked about this, we were poo-pooed. Oh, it's not true, that's not really what's going on. Well, here we are today, and we're seeing it front and center, face up, it's here. And this has been going on now for months and months and months. It has to stop. No half-hearted executive orders are gonna work. We need a governor who, instead of giving $2.4 billion to a failed policy in New York City, take that money and put it on a roadway, because she took $100 million out of the roadway fund. How about that? That's what you all pay for. That's the right thing to do. There is no reason, the only thing that's going to happen here is this is a continuation of failed policy that money's being thrown at, and it's not going to work. The answer is right in front of us. It is not working. So, from my perspective, again, I have a countywide Rockland Codes Initiative team that works out of the health department. We work hand in glove with municipalities who are doing the right thing and doing the job, because we bring another tool to our toolbox, which is the sanitary code. We have a different way of enforcing these laws and helping the local municipalities who are dealing with building and code violations. We will continue to do that. The one thing I want to tell the people of Clarkstown in particular, based upon today, is that you're fortunate to have an amazing group of people running your town. And we will be there to work with them to protect all of you as best as we can. That is my pledge. Thank you.
And let me just conclude and sum up, and then we'll open it up for questions. You know, as our Congressman and County Executive said, you know, there are bigger policies that are ahead of this, but how does it affect us locally? Aside from in these two particular instances, and this is yet again, these are people that are profiteering. One owner, 10 homes, 27-year-old individual lives in Brooklyn and owns 10 homes up here, all rented out, violations across all of them, the ones that we've been able to gain access to. And so we're going to state Supreme Court to have access compelled for all of these homes and to start the process to get them all converted back to single-family homes. For that one owner, Mr. Schwartz for the 10, and for Mr. Bormio the 7. Let's talk about some of the costs here, right? It wasn't too long ago that we only needed 1 or 2 code enforcement officers in the town. We now have 5 slots, and it's not enough. We get calls every single day. That's expensive. The Clarkstown Police Department, exceptional, best police department, I believe, in the country. Largest town police department in New York State, out of the near 300 police departments across New York State. We have to detail officers to assist our code enforcement officers in gaining access. The code enforcement officers are the ones that handle it, but they need to be able to safely get in when a judge issues a search warrant. In instances like this, we have to build a case. It's timely. Residents get upset. It takes months to build a case. We have to build probable cause and determine how we can be able to get into some of these properties. We're working on literally dozens more homes with other owners. And then let's talk about the other hat that I wear as town supervisor. All 5 town supervisors sit on Rockland Green. which handles the refuse collection across Rockland County. And as town supervisor, I had been the chairman for about 8 years, and I'm an ex officio member as supervisor of the Rockland County Sewer District. The extra cost that all of these people that are here, that are living in a single-family home that should only be housing a single family, but you have 20 or 30 people. It's all the extra garbage, all the extra recycling, the littering, the extra cars, that are coming on in, the extra sewage, the cost, the unintended cost that all of these other systems are bearing. And then let's talk about the nuisance level, because I hear this from residents all the time. People are calling and complaining because it's nonstop, routine. Ubers coming day and night, taxi services coming day and night, people honking horns at 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night. And then the illegal conversions. We had a house, not one of these owners, but we had a house just about 2 or 3 months ago that was re-inspected. And the owner had illegally converted that house. And I'll conclude with this. This is how unscrupulous people can be. They had illegally converted the house. We forced them to reconvert it. And we have the ability then to go back in and re-inspect it over the next 2 years. And if it's on the rental registry, that'll continue forever. So we go back into this house, and I want to thank Megan and Ray, because Megan thought that something wasn't right, and they went into the foyer off of the kitchen, and the house looked like it was in compliance. But she said, no, there's something not right here. And they did a little digging, and what they discovered was a fake wall, and they pushed the wall open, and there was a rickety wood ladder that you had to climb up to get into the attic, which had been illegally subdivided again. And they had a full bed and a single bed and a family of 3 living in an attic. And that's how they got in and out. Could you imagine if there was a fire there? They would have died, firefighters would have died. We cannot allow this. That's why we're taking the vigorous action that we are. And I want to thank our county executive and the Codes Initiative for supporting us. I want to thank all of the folks here with the Town of Clarkstown team, and especially I want to thank Congressman Waller, who's helping us and assisting us. He's helping us with some grants as well, hopefully to combat this issue going forward. Thank you. We're open to take any questions as well from any one of us who spoke, or from the town attorney, or from our forces.
Sure. We've been here before, and another name we've heard before is First Choice Property Management. We spoke about the 2 landlords, but here's this property management group again.
Yes.
What's the legal action with them? How are we approaching that?
Yeah, I'm going to ask Kevin to speak to that, because we're going to be pursuing action with them as well. In some of these houses, though, Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, they're more recent to the property management.
Yeah, First Choice we had on the last case when we were in Supreme. They're involved in the case with Simca Schwartz, so we've named them as defendants, third party, and we're going to look to see how it is that here they are again managing. Because in our last case, we had some of the property owners tell us, "Oh, well, we didn't know what went on at the property. We turned everything over to First Choice." So we have to see where the trail leads, because obviously this doesn't seem happenstance. This is the second time now that company's involved in mismanaging properties. So they're going to have to answer for it. If they're listed as defendants, they have to appear in court.
Okay. Do these 2 landlords own properties in other parts of the county? And if so, how many? If they own a number in Clarkstown, do they own others in the county? Do we know?
So, Bormio owns, Bormio and Schwartz own properties across other parts of the county. And
Any in Spring Valley? Do we know if that's the, do we know?
Not certain.
Okay, we're not sure where.
I know that there's some in Ramapo and other towns as well. Stony Point.
Considering we're back here again, 8, 9 months after the September findings, what's a message to landlords out there that maybe are on the radar, under the radar, who may be doing this?
So here in Clarkstown, we're on the lookout. We're taking tips from folks, and we absolutely are going to prosecute to the fullest extent of the law. What I can tell you is I have that list of the properties that we announced back in October, and just about every single one of them are in compliance. The most egregious house on that list on New Hempstead Road, was fully converted back to a single-family home and placed on the market and sold. So we've been successful in shutting these things down. So to the landlords, we're coming. And, you know, when we can prove a case, you're gonna pay. And this will not be tolerated.
Early in the press conference, you mentioned the other properties had been cleaned up. What do you mean by cleaned up? Some updates on those other legal actions.
Sure, so we were successful in gaining compliance from most of those properties. The judge ordered entrance for us, and that's what we're hoping to happen here, since we haven't been into all 10 of these properties owned by Mr. Schwartz, and we haven't been into a bunch of the properties owned by Mr. Bormio. What we've been able to establish from our investigation that these type of activities are likely taking place in these homes, overcrowding and what have you. So in terms of that other list, we can provide some detailed information, but we've been able to get into every one of those homes. We've been able to issue violations, fines assessed, and houses reconverted, and they're on our rental registry, and now we get to go back in and inspect and be able to double check. And as I said, unfortunately, in some instances, people reviolate. In one of these homes with Mr. Bormio, violations were issued. He appeared to clean them up, but they weren't, and that's why we're back here with him again, because he reviolated. So it's going to be an ongoing effort. The rental registry, people need to comply, and we are coming. I mean, we're absolutely coming. And we've got dozens of other cases within the town. And I gotta believe Clarkstown is the tip of the spear in terms of this. I believe there are other properties that are out there across, I talk with the other town supervisors, mayors, I'm part of the Association of Towns, all across New York State, we're seeing this. And I think the congressman and the county exec can speak to that as well, since they cover larger areas. This is not just a Clarkstown issue. We happen to be seeing it and being able to provide as much information because we put an enormous amount of resources right here with our code enforcement team and our fire inspectors. And I can't say enough good things about our code enforcement, our fire inspectors, our building department, and our police department. But that's costly. This is expensive. You're looking at millions of dollars worth of salaries, and benefits and support staff. And they should be working on inspecting buildings and making sure that restaurants are in compliance, not having to go in and document and then start the process to kick 30 people out of a single family home. Having a family of 5 in a single bedroom with a hot plate, an extension cord cut through the wall as their source of supply, and all these people, English is a second language, they're new to the country. I gotta imagine what's going through their head. Was this their dream of coming to the United States? This is how I'm gonna live? I mean, a family in one bedroom and then paying cash? And then what's going on with the kids? Our police are constantly intercepting people that are panhandling, selling gum and other things outside of supermarkets, and during school hours, school-age kids. We've intercepted school-age kids not enrolled in school, on Route 59 as their parents are, as their moms are selling gum and hardly any English skills for anybody. And then finally, the impact on the schools. Clarkstown is home to 4 school districts. 4 of the 8 school districts in the county, cover the town of Clarkstown. Every single school superintendent and school district has told me that they've had an exponential increase in English as a second language, and just a huge growth in that population. It's endemic of the overall problem. You want to add anything else?
9 months ago when we were here, whenever it was, you talked about, you were investigating and looking at why people were coming here, and there was some shade cast on the Adams administration and the subcontractors that they were using to place, and you were raising questions. And I'm wondering down that road, you figured anything out more about the pattern of people coming here besides the fact that there's a workforce need here. How they attract people.
Are we referring to the time we were over in our offices for the press conference over here?
No, the one here.
The one
We
here.
were here, and there was a discussion. There was
There's a question
at every
raised.
level. There was a question raised by every level of government as to how people were ending up
Right.
here, and what was the interface with either the Adams administration or contractors, and between the landlords here?
No, basically, and I know that this discussion came up with all these actions that were taken by the town of Clarkstown. A lot of questions were asked, some information was gleaned, some information was not gleaned. We had not been able to get a source, but we have people coming from all parts of this country, but specifically New York City, but Queens, for example. We don't have any more information. People are clamming up. They know they don't have to really talk to us, but they get a little scared, they talk a little, but they're not giving us more information. I know I spoke to Inspector Francis earlier before we started this thing, and he has there's a checkoff sheet of questions you ask, which is normal in any kind of investigation, and some information was obtained, but to not understand the obvious here, our proximity to New York City, it would be shocking if we were not getting some of the issues coming up this way from New York City. It would be shocking. We have admissions of Queens being a source borough. So, I mean, again, it's been said here before, the entire country has become the southern border, which, as you remember, Nancy, we mentioned this back in March of last year, that this was going on, it's going to get worse, and it's exactly what's happening here now. There needs to be action taken at the levels of government that's allowing this to happen immediately, and we've said this 9 months ago, or a year and a half ago rather almost, and we're saying it again. That's the only thing that's going to stop us at this point. The infrastructure is not being looked at. People are coming here, and again, we all came from somewhere. This is not an anti-immigrant observation, but people have been allowed to this country in an orderly fashion. There was some thought given to what was going on. This is an unbridled amount of people coming in here right now. And it just can't be handled. Schools, social services, pantries cannot handle it. It's getting worse and worse and worse.